All right, welcome to CAPECAST. We've got a special episode today. We've got Erik Davis, managing editor at Fandango, here with us. How you doing today, Erik?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Brandon, how are you doing? Should ask.
I'm good. Oh, no, it's okay. Doing good.
Nice.
Doing good.
Yeah. So a lot of our viewers know Erik. We're big Snyder Cut fans. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to get somebody on here who's got a more well-rounded view of what's, what people could in the community or outside of the community are thinking.
A logical opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get out of the echo chamber a little bit.
Which is always good. It's important to sort of have a well-rounded experience of something.
For sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's something we know very well, that it gets, when we're talking with the same people about the same stuff, that people outside of that bubble have no idea what we're talking about.
Exactly.
But yeah, so first off, if you have any accounts or anything, projects you're working on that you want to plug, feel free, go ahead and do that. I know at Erik Davis on Twitter. Yep. Anything else you want to?
Yeah, I mean, just follow me on Twitter. Anything that I'm doing, I put there. That's kind of my main avenue. I'm also on Instagram at This Is Erik Davis with a K, Erik with a K, cool. And so you can follow me there as well. But yeah, like right now on Twitter, I'm just doing these pop-up conversations, like these live Twitter spaces. So I've been doing them all week leading up to the finale of WandaVision. Not necessarily they're about WandaVision, but it just kind of chose this week because there's a lot of chatter about Marvel, about DC. Mm-hmm. And so I've been bringing people on. I had Boss Logic on, Rob Liefeld, created Deadpool's on, Grace Randolph. Nice. And so, yeah, so follow me there and listen in.
Yeah, I actually jumped on the Boss Logic one last night. That was cool to hear him talk about how he kind of, wormed his way into what he does.
He's cool. He's a good dude.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw that pop up at the top of Twitter, and I was like, "What is this? I've never seen this before."
Yeah. No, not a lot of people have seen it yet. So if you do see it up there, and it's somebody that's familiar to you, and you're like, "Oh, this is interesting," just click in, and you can tap it, and it tells you sort of who the speakers are, and then you can, I think, tap it again, and then you can kind of go in as a listener. And I'm doing like Q&As in there. So you could also go in there to just listen, or you can like ask a question. I could bring you up on a stage. It's almost like a virtual panel, basically.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people have been like, missing Comic-Con, and, like one guy got up there last night and he was like, I've always been a big fan of Boss Logic, but, you go to like a Comic-Con panel or something, like I can't get near somebody like you. And so, it's cool for like people that have maybe never been to Comic-Con, or, some of these personalities have very, very large followings and they don't have time to talk to everybody. And so, a situation like that, you can kind of come in and ask a question to somebody that you really admire that you haven't been able to talk to ever. And those moments, I think, cool, are what make it cool.
That was the part that I probably enjoyed the most, was just folks jumping in, and you could tell they were just stoked to ask him questions about stuff.
For sure.
But yeah, so, well, to start off here, I guess let's kind of, for folks who don't or aren't familiar with you, to kind of give your background on whether you were a fan of Man of Steel, a fan of BVS, the Snyderverse, just your kind of general take on those two movies. Were you a fan of them?
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering the entertainment business for 16 years now, in just different capacities. I've been with Fandango now doing work with them for about 12 years, and so I've been, kind of embedded in the entire modern era of superhero movies. I think the only kind of films that I didn't get to cover as part of my work were probably those really early 2000s, like those early X-Men, early Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Like I never got to cover those. But from 2008 on, from like the beginning of the MCU on, and the DCEU, I've been covering them. And so I've been part of the press, part of the media. I've been on sets. I've been on Marvel sets. I've been on DC sets. And so, yeah, I mean, going into Man of Steel, I was very excited about that film. I remember very specifically that period of time and coming off of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight movies. And I remember Nolan kind of was like, I'm going to produce Man of Steel and Zack's going to direct it. And, we're going to kind of, I think at that point it was like, all right, we're going to do what we just did for Batman, for Superman.
Right.
And then, there was all of the, I think that there was a lot of external pressure that was being applied to DC to catch up to Marvel and to like, well, it's hard to just make a Superman movie, or a Superman trilogy like we just did with Batman, because Marvel is now up to the Avengers and they have ensemble movies and all these characters are together, and like we can't just do a boring old Superman trilogy, And so, I think that when that pressure began to start being applied, you could tell that it was feeling rushed to a certain extent. But I love Man of Steel. I love what Zack did with that film. It's probably it's one of my favorite Superman movies. I mean, I go all the way back. I'm old, so I grew up with the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and I have those are near and dear to my heart. But I love what Zack did with it. And BVS, I like the Ultimate Edition more than I like the theatrical cut. I think Zack Snyder's that kind of director where if you give him the room to go where he wants to go, you're going to get, all of him and everything that he has to offer. Sometimes that's a little bit too much for people. I'm curious, after a 4-hour version of this Justice League movie, even the most hardcore fans are going to be like 3 hours and 15 minutes into this, and they're going to be like, dude's got 45 more minutes of this. I'm curious what that experience is like, sitting down to watch 4 hours of anything is a lot, is a commitment. But yeah, I mean, I like BVS. I like Man of Steel. I wasn't crazy about that the Justice League movie. I thought there were elements of it that I liked. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of consistent with our views on everything too. So obviously Justice League was a tonal departure from Man of Steel and BVS, which is that's one of the main reasons that we love those movies. It's just the tone that he set.
And that's probably the reason why we're so excited to see this, because it felt like a black eye on this series of films. For us being fans of the original two, just having them have no real connective tissue besides the actors that were involved. It's exciting to see that we're gonna hopefully get something more in line with what came before it. So that's gonna be good.
It should be cool. It should be cool to see what his ideas were. I think the unfortunate thing about this whole, when you hear him speak about it, he had a trilogy planned, and he wanted to see a part 2 and a part 3, and and that this film is going to end on a cliffhanger or something. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of conversation that happens after this comes out about why we're not getting those and all of that stuff. And, part of me kind of feels for Zack, because you could tell he's sort of looking to leave it behind right now and kind of focus on some other things. He's got this zombie movie coming out. I don't know if you guys have seen his Dawn of the Dead movie, but it's super rad
for sure.
And I think that I'd like to see him go off in other areas too. So
he's got a huge year coming here.
It's such an interesting. My thing with this Snyder Cut is, I'm fascinated with it just as somebody who's covered the entertainment industry for as long as I have, because we've never really seen a fan-driven campaign at this scale to convince a studio to bring back a director that left the project that was in a very large public way, bringing him back, giving him millions of dollars to complete something that they don't necessarily have plans for in the future.
Right.
Like, all of this is like this perfect storm of history that's happening. And I'm like, as somebody who's studied Hollywood and the history of Hollywood, like I'm fascinated by the way this has come together, and I root for the filmmaker. I always root for the filmmaker. I root for their vision. And I root for for the fans that are jonesing for this thing. I root for them and for you guys to have a good experience with it and it be worthwhile.
Yeah, we've got a couple days blocked off on our calendars for when this bad boy comes out.
What do you do? Like when you have something that's 4 hours long, right? And like you have a podcast dedicated to it and all that stuff. Like, what do you watch it all in one sitting? Do you watch, like, how many times are you going to watch it? Are you going to dissect it scene by scene? Like what's your angle?
we know for sure, we've planned for sure that we're going to watch it back to back. So it's going to be 8 hours out the gates for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is the plan.
It's aggressive, but
8 hours.
Yeah. And then,
it's so funny how, the mentality with this, it does feel super daunting having a 4 hour theatrical movie, or theatrical, but at home, but whatever. But I mean, I myself, I don't know if you guys do the same, but, like just watching the latest HBO series, I'll plow through 4 or 5 episodes in a row. It's, I guess it doesn't feel as intense because it's got those it's broken up. And then they, once that little next episode thing starts trickling across, it's like, yeah, I guess we'll keep going.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because these kinds of movies, like the level, like of a Justice League movie, an Avengers movie, like these things are, they beat by beat, like the specific runtimes, they need to hit a certain time in order to kind of, be released into the world. And, so there's so much trimming that happens, and you lose character motivations, you lose investment in certain characters, because really it's about setting up the next set piece, right? The next, how much longer do we have to wait before they're all fighting somebody? And, so I'm super interested to get, like, I forget what that original theatrical cut was. It was probably like two and a half. It
was right at 2. Right at 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Right at 2.
Studio, man.
Just 2 hours. So you're getting an extra 2 hours of a film. And I'm fascinated by like what did they have? What was cut? What's on the cutting room floor? Like, and is all of that stuff going to allow this room for these characters to breathe and grow and evolve? And and I wonder, like, if we come out of this with a different way of looking at Jason Momoa's Aquaman or Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, or just like it's going to change the way we experience a character. And I don't know. That kind of stuff is what's fascinating to me.
That's a good question though. What is the thing that you are looking forward to the most out of this movie? Whether it's a character or, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, of course I want to see like the Martian Manhunter and Leto's Joker and, and stuff that like was cut out that wasn't in that first film. I'm down to see. I really want to see, what they did with Superman. I feel like, poor Henry Cavill having to get that mustache digitally removed. And like, I kind of want, I thought he had such an interesting story, and I think we wanted to see, that black suit Superman. And I thought that was such a fascinating dynamic to reintroduce Superman back into the fold. And he's not the same person anymore. And what does that do to the dynamic of a team? And all of those ideas were very interesting to me. And I felt like that first cut, we saw it all go by in like 2 minutes. And, and so I want to see, I'm curious to see Superman, that's who Zack started with. I feel like, in many ways, these 3 movies, while they're not 3 Superman movies, they do very much feel like 3 Superman movies. At least like that's who we're kind of with through these 3 movies. And the other characters are there and they all have their own story arcs and stuff. But I really feel like these are Superman's movies. I almost compare it to like Captain America. Like you had the first Captain America, you had Winter Soldier that had a bit of a larger ensemble. And then you had Civil War, which everybody's like, this is an Avengers movie. And I was like, no, it's still a Captain America movie, through and through, even though it has these Avengers-esque elements. And so I do feel like this Justice League movie, at least Zack Snyder's version, is going to feel like a team movie, but also you're the most investment you're going to have is with Superman, because that's sort of the story that you've been most invested in through the 3. So a long-winded way of answering your question is Superman. I'm a Superman guy. Brandon's a Batman guy.
And that's one of the things that I latched to the most in Man of Steel and BVS was just the heart behind Cavill's Superman. And I don't know, I think it was like the third trailer for JL theatrical, and they had the scene where Amy Adams walks out on the porch, and so I take that as a yes. Kind of, that was the dialogue. And I was like really looking forward to seeing that in the movie, and then went and saw it in theaters, and he said something along the lines of like,
No dice.
it was itchy, like how it's being resurrected, itchy.
It's hard, man. I just feel bad for just this movie in general, because I think as Zack got to BVS and started to turn the corner to Justice League, going through with this original vision that he had for this large DCEU and introducing the Justice League, it ran up against, changes at the studio. Marvel, tossing out $1 billion movie after the next, and them having a specific tone, and somebody coming in and saying they have to be more fun, and and just all of these outside things that were just influencing everything. And you could tell, I thought that Anthony Bresnikan wrote a really great Vanity Fair piece on Justice League. And, I think more so than anybody before, talk to executives, talk to Zack, talk to his wife, like talk to everybody kind of involved in this. And it painted a clearer picture of what was happening. And this guy was, he was just kind of, it seemed like they were beating him down to the ground, like and it wasn't his movie anymore. And he's like, I'm going to walk away. And then he had this family tragedy, and it made that decision even more, more clear for him. So
very much easier for sure.
I feel for this film. I feel for this film. And I know there's been so much angry divisiveness. People hate, they're going against critics, for giving bad reviews or whatever. And I think there's a level of just like, I don't get as much involved in the anger and that kind of rhetoric that goes back and forth on this film. But, my heart, goes out to Zack and to feel for this film, because it didn't get the pathway that it deserved to get, I thought. And so,
what is kind of mentioning the critic side of things, kind of in your circle, the folks you talk to, like in the Snyder Cut community, like you were talking about, there's very much this critics and the war that goes on between fans and critics with these movies. What kind of have you seen a shift? Because have you seen a shift from theatrical Justice League to this Justice League as far as critics going into it? Like, are they more receptive now versus then, or because of the story behind it or anything? Like,
I mean, it's hard because I feel like everybody kind of lumps an entire group of people into one sort of thought way people think. Like, what are the critics are this, or Snyder Cut fans are all like this,
right?
And it's like, Snyder Cut fans is probably like hundreds of thousands, and you can't just say everybody that is a fan of something is this certain way, and you can't say that every film critic is this certain way. I think every individual has their own sort of nonsense that they're bringing into this thing. And I'm sure you're going to have critics that are rolling their eyes, and they're going to be like 4 hours of a bad movie, a movie that was already bad, and now they're doing 4 hours of it, and it's going to be awful. I think there are some people like me who are fascinated from a historical standpoint about what this is and what it looks like, and that we've never seen it before, and they want to watch it just to experience and see what this thing is. And I think there are some people. My dog is going off in the background, but
I got two of them. I get it.
I think there are some people that are really jazzed about it. My friend Sean wrote a book about it, and he's sort of been embedded in this community for years, writing about this community. There it is, released the Snyder Cut. I think I'm quoted on the back of that.
I was going to bring that up. So I just read this thing 2 days ago, and I saw your name was on the back of it with your quote on there.
That's why I was wondering. I don't have a copy yet, but a couple people.
It's an awesome book.
Yeah. You know what I really love about this book is that it's from a fan's perspective, you know. And I think a lot of people were like looking at this book and being like, "All right, you better have talked to Warner Brothers executives, and you better have gotten to the bottom of all of this stuff." But that's not what this is. Like, this is like telling the stories of these fans that kind of didn't know each other, that were strangers to each other, who all sort of found each other through this movement, and especially the people where this movement kind of helped change their lives in really positive ways, and they helped raise money for things like suicide prevention and stuff like that. And so I look at something like that and I say this is a really great thing. So that, I have friends that are critics that are on that side too, and so you can't just say are all the critics warming up to this, because all of the critics are a whole lot of individual people with their own thoughts and feelings about the world. But I think that, like with any big anticipated project, you're going to have a bunch of people that feel differently. I will say that, I got a little bit sad by this because, I was talking about this a lot, and then I had some buddies to me, like buddies that I'm close with, critics that I'm close with, coming to me and sharing images of people threatening their lives and their family. And because they maybe made a joke or they weren't as positive in their review of, I don't know, BVS or something like that.
Sure.
And people are like DMing them pictures of like guns and like, I know where you live. And that kind of stuff really makes me sad. And
there's a quote from Zack in the book too. Like, those people are not a part of what this movie is. And it's a shame that they don't. It's a shame that stuff happens in general, but it's a shame that they don't understand that.
It's hard
just because there's so much positivity around what this thing is and how amazing it is that this thing is even happening.
Yeah, but you know what? It's all fandom. I think fandom in the last, I would say, last 10 years, I would say, in the rise of social media, fandom has produced really great stuff. We've got a lot of really great moments together that have been very positive, but, not just with this, but with Star Wars and with, even I'm seeing a lot of Taylor Swift. Her fans are pretty crazy, pretty dedicated and devoted to supporting her against her critics. And so, I think there's just this kind of, and it's maybe even increased twofold during this pandemic, when we're all sort of locked in our houses and kind of itchy and angry and irritated just in general. It's sad to see that kind of stuff. So I always kind of go towards positivity. I always go towards, I'm an optimist. I feel like if you live your life going towards, with positivity in mind, then you'll feel more fulfilled. And so I look at the positive angles of these things. When I tweet about movies, I only really tweet about the movies I like. I don't tweet about the ones I don't like.
Sure.
People call me a show for, but whatever. I just feel like if I'm going to put negativity out to the world, why am I doing that? What is it serving?
It's wasted energy.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know if anyone's mind has ever been changed via Twitter conversations. People think they're going to, though. They're very adamant about it.
Well, and if I have a platform, I want to tell you about stuff that I think you should watch and that I think you would like. And I like, the thing that pisses me off the most is when you go to a film festival and they have these really tiny movies, like these tiny movies that were literally taped together with like sweat and scotch tape, and somebody's just writes like the most negative review in the world of this tiny, and I'm like, why?
What are you doing?
What because something like that, while you're just like living in your mind and like, oh, I'm going to use that joke here and that joke there, and you publish that out to the world, and that might just kill the film, and it's
and even the people behind it too, like not just the film itself, but the people behind the film, who knows what they could put together in the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, I support film critics. My company owns Rotten Tomatoes, so. Which is an awesome team, and I do a lot of work with the Rotten Tomatoes team. And so I have a lot of friends that are critics. I believe in the film critic community. I actually think it's more influential than it's maybe ever been before, because there's so much freaking content
Yeah,
content
that's
now.
true.
Nobody knows what the hell is good, what the hell to watch. I think sites like Rotten Tomatoes are becoming more influential than they've ever been, just because people are like, I don't know what the hell to watch right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I am always a supporter of critics. I just have my own philosophies of the way that I talk about movies, and I like to keep it positive.
It's interesting that you bring up Rotten Tomatoes, because I feel like that had a big major impact as far as how we kind of not necessarily got to where we are now. I mean, it all kind of ended up here, but as far as WB's outlook on trying to obtain that critical like darling in terms of a fresh Rotten Tomatoes reviewed movie, Marvel had done such a good job. You mentioned this earlier, but at getting critically, like obviously financially, successful movies, but also critical darlings in terms of that community. But when you've got like, I think what Man of Steel had like what a 50 or 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then BVS was like 27% or something.
Yeah.
And so they kind of, on top of them like trying to chase the money factor, they just like really kind of steered their direction in terms of trying to make more, instead of going with this, like, I guess, a very defined vision on Snyder's end, they kind of wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They had this like preaching to where they're like, we're studio, we're director driven studio, but yet on this side of the, I guess, their business, they were like, well, they couldn't see the forest for the trees because they were too caught up in trying to compete with Marvel. And I feel like that Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh type thing kind of got the best of them in terms of thinking that by trying to, in the middle of like after post-production had already been completed, trying to retcon this movie into a Marvel movie, which obviously didn't work for them because it kind of divided. It not only divided their fans, but the people that were on the Marvel side were just like, yeah, I mean, I didn't care about this franchise to begin with, so I'm not really going to invest in it now. So it's like they couldn't really, for whatever reasons, they just couldn't I guess make a big splash with that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people when they speak about Rotten Tomatoes and I see them, they're always like, well, Rotten Tomatoes said this. And it's like, well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't saying anything. I mean, they're aggregating these scores from individual critics.
A lot of people
the film critic
do that for sure. I feel like there needs to be some education on as far as people's understanding of what Rotten Tomatoes is. They see like, yeah. I'm just saying, like in general, like people think that Rotten Tomatoes, like if it's a 80%, they think it's like a B grade movie. They don't understand that it's like 80% of the people said this was good.
Yeah,
or 20% said it was bad or whatever.
Well, and I think a lot of people think Rotten Tomatoes decides the score, and that's not the case either. And I actually think Rotten Tomatoes has made a lot of interesting, really good changes in the last 2 years, expanding the pool of critics, diversifying it significantly. There are a lot more voices, a lot of younger voices, up and coming voices, of all kinds that are now feeding into that tomato meter score, and you have these verified audience scores, which I think will, once sort of theaters begin to open in a more robust way, will be a bit, a bigger deal too, because the people saw the film and they're not just sort of trying to throw negative steam at something because they don't agree with a storyline or they don't agree with a particular casting or something like that. So I actually think the last 2 years, there have been a lot of changes. I'm biased, obviously. I work for that organization in ways, and so, but I'm very proud to do work with that team, and I know everybody on that team personally, and I can attest that they are all huge movie fans, and we constantly geek out together. When we were in the office, we played movies all day, and messed around. And so, like, the people that are in charge of that site have the movie fans' best interest at heart, and they love movies and they love TV, and I think they just want to create a good space for everybody to really enjoy it together.
Yeah, it's interesting insight too. That I feel like from the outside, Rotten Tomatoes looks very much like this like you earn the ability to be a critic, then you can, post a review on Rotten Tomatoes, and it sounds like it's a little bit more of like a living organism, and you're trying to improve it and build upon it. And
and they take it very seriously, the critics that they bring in, and there's criteria, and they want it, and they read their reviews. There are teams that comb through the work that you've done, and they're really looking to bring in individuals that have put in the work, that have said, that have committed to this and to criticism and to writing. And I think that they've done, a phenomenal job of sort of, putting together this system that exists now. And I think that I can't wait to see like sort of the next few years of these big movies as they come out, and how this new sort of larger, more diversified pool of critics, what that does to the conversation. It's something that I'm really looking forward to. That's
very cool.
Speaking of, just a sidebar here a little bit, since you kind of work in that industry, the theatrical model, what is your outlook right now, given the theatrical model, in terms of, obviously with Fandango is a huge part of that. So just curious kind of what your take is essentially a year after kind of theatrical model just the breaks.
Yeah, I think we're still waiting to see, right? Until we're like on the other side, and until we're on equal footing, until you can go to the theater and there are no restrictions at all, and it's kind of back to what it was. Once we're in that environment, then you can kind of take stock and look around and say, okay, where are we at? Obviously I feel like I've been cooped up in my house. I'm dying to go out, not just to the movie theaters. I want to go out to restaurants. I want to go out to live sporting events. I had a bunch of concerts lined up last summer I never got to go to. I want to go to concerts. So I think a lot of people are going to want to get out of their houses. And I tell people, because I'm asked this question a lot, and I look over to other countries that are sort of past where we are, and like Australia. Australia cinemas are open 100%, no masks. Everybody's going, they're selling out. China, they're opening up movies to over $100 million in a weekend, and I think they're even still at like 50% capacity. So it's clear that in other places of the world, people are itching to go back to the movies, and I think there's a boatload of giant movies that some were postponed, some are still on their way. And I've seen a couple of those big movies that haven't come out yet. I'm not allowed to tell you which ones they are, but I will say that every 5 to 10 minutes while watching them, I thought about what it would be like to watch this on a big screen, and like it must be amazing. So I have a feeling that even as some of these bigger movies start rolling out, and you have that option to like watch it on HBO Max and watch it at home and whatever, and you may be watching a couple of these at home, because you may not feel comfortable to go back to the theater yet. I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing the kinds of movies soon that people are going to be like, I don't want to watch this on my TV. Like I got to go watch this in a movie theater. Even though it's been a year, this is a pastime of ours that we just valued for 100 years, and I don't see that. I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I know that us ourselves, we're definitely in that mindset. It seems like there's going to be a lot of working backwards in terms of just trying to get people there. I feel like a lot of people have gotten so used to just staying home for the last year. It's like trying to get them,
come on,
retrain them to want to do this and feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, well, and I think you're going to have better options, right? I think you may, like if you look at something like Universal, where they've said, we're going to put our movies in theaters, and then after 17 days, we have the option to put it on a premium VOD service. Yeah. And so, you're going to be at a place. And I don't know if every studio will adopt the same model, and I don't know if eventually after a year it will be like, a consistent, like there used to be this consistent 90-day window between seeing a movie in theaters before you can watch it at home. Maybe that becomes something like 30 to 45 days. Yeah. So X big movie comes out. It's like, how badly do you want to see it now in theaters and be part of that conversation? Right. And then and if it's not that bad, then you could wait a month and a half, and you can watch it at home and rent it for, a premium price, or you can wait even longer and rent it for a lesser of a price. And so, I think people are just going to have that option, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ron.
It's interesting because we're talking about all this theater stuff, and Brandon, you kind of mentioned it earlier with Zack Snyder's Justice League. It feels like COVID, like all of this happening, is very much a reason that movie's happening at all. Like, whether the Snyders wanted to give work to effects houses and agencies, and the studio was strapped for content. Like it's just kind of a weird, there's so many weird things that have happened in the last year that have contributed to this Snyder movie even happening.
This perfect storm of like
not all good, not all bad. Yeah, it's so weird.
I mean, it definitely is a perfect storm. And honestly, as far as the movie itself, we feel like it worked out better now than it would have in 2017, because even let's say, I mean, if Snyder would have released his movie in 2017 and the studio still mandated a 2-hour cut from him, which he said that they did before he left, it's like, what? Yeah. I mean, that movie would have been severely compromised versus this 4-hour super fleshed out cut that we're going to get. So
yeah. I think the only sin of it is that it's opening at a time when there's still a lot of caution around watching stuff in movie theaters, and I feel like in a healthier environment, there would have been some kind of, if not a theatrical run, at least like fan screenings in all these cities. And I don't know, for all I know, they may still do pop-up kind of screenings for it. I am not aware of any. I've gone to HBO Max and asked them point blank, are you screening this in a movie theater? And their response, literally, this was yesterday, and their response is, this is an HBO Max exclusive. And I'm like, okay. But who knows? You may see a pop up. Maybe there's a drive-in or something like that, and it would be cool. I wonder if and I don't even know if this is possible, but I wonder if people can like rent out their own AMC theater and like show the Snyder Cut on the big screen.
Yeah. Well, you can do that around here, but they have select movies that you can choose from. But
that's one thing I wonder about. That would be cool.
I know that he definitely has theatrical in mind at some point, whether it's like Fathom events or something, because this movie was formatted for IMAX. I mean, it was shot with a full gate, as far as, it's like 1:3 ratio. So I think Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, both of those may have been shot with their digital IMAX cameras.
I believe so.
But yeah, I mean, it would be such a missed opportunity to not be able to see a movie like that scale on a big screen at some point. And obviously not now, but.
And maybe the answer is giving it to the fans and letting the fans create their own screening experiences. Maybe that's, maybe there's less of like waiting for the official people to say you can go watch it, or maybe it's like the fans doing backyard screenings or doing a drive-in. I don't know. I feel like once this movie is in the hands of the fans, I think that it's going to take on a life of its own.
No kidding. Jeez. That's a good point. What do you think? Since you work very closely on all this stuff, as far as like marketing for this movie,
awareness, I guess,
how do you feel like it stacks up? Like Godzilla vs. Kong is coming up soon here. Like, do you think that the marketing efforts from where you're sitting have been comparable, or do you think the project is a unicorn? I'll give it that, Zack Snyder's Justice League, but like, how do you feel their efforts have stacked up versus their pre-planned theatrical stuff that they're releasing now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard from my vantage point because I see it everywhere. I mean, and I'm not out in the world as much, so I'm not like driving past like bus stops and I'm not walking around malls, and so like all these little kind of nooks and crannies where you would see like something being promoted, I'm not really spending time there, so I don't know if they're what they're promoting and if they're promoting that there. I mean, I'm online a lot and it's in my face constantly, so I'm sure as we get into these like 2.5 weeks to go before it comes out, we'll see some more. I'm sure we'll see some more promotion for it and whatnot. And, you know, I'm friends with a lot of people at Warner Brothers. A lot of respect for those people, and I'm sure they know what they're doing. And you know, I think people will find this. And I mean, it's going to live on HBO Max. It's going to be there, and it's going to be on HBO Max when Warner Brothers rolls out Godzilla vs. Kong. It's going to be on HBO Max when they roll out Mortal Kombat. And so people that may have not been as familiar with the Snyder Cut, but they're accessing HBO Max because they really want to see Godzilla, or they really want to see Mortal Kombat, like they're just going to find the Snyder Cut there. So, you know, I think, you know, this thing can just is sort of evergreen, to use a term that we use a lot when we create content.
Sure.
You know, it's going to be evergreen on HBO Max. And I think, you know, it's not like people only have 3 days to watch this thing and then it goes away. So I think people will find it when they find it, and I think that's
interesting. It might be now that you mentioned, it might be a project that has some legs to it, just because of the fact that it's not a, you know, limited run on HBO Max.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like, what happens after? Like, what happens to this entire fan-driven movement, this community that's come up? What happens after this thing comes out? And I mean, yes, there's a month or 2 or 3 or 4 of dissecting every single shot of this film, but once that's run its course, what happens? You know, and I think I hope that it's positive, whatever happens. And I hope that, you know, people get what they want out of it, and I hope that at least that momentum goes into a positive direction, and maybe it bleeds into the projects that they have in the pipeline now that I'm excited about, like Flash, like the Batman, like Black Adam, like Aquaman 2, and so on.
Yeah, there's cool stuff that has been rumored that I feel like, especially like with Leto being involved as Joker, like I feel like there's stuff that could potentially get some traction if it's received well when this movie comes out. Stuff that's been, you know, talked about on a fan level, but not necessarily probably talked about at a studio level. Yeah,
I don't know why they're not making just Batman v Joker. Like, just make a and put Affleck and Leto
and Manganiello as Deathstroke. Yeah, I mean,
you know, I don't know why that movie doesn't exist. I mean, Joker they did a Joker movie, made $1 billion, and it wasn't even really kind of, you know, accurate to, there was no other comic characters in it or anything like that. So, and then people are jonesing for an Affleck Batman movie. They have this multiverse that they're going to set up, which is going to give them the room to really do anything that they want, you know, and that's what's great about a multiverse. And I think we'll probably get like a Batman Beyond, like an old Michael Keaton Batman movie, which I think would be awesome. But I also think like an Affleck's Batman versus Leto's Joker, even if it's just one movie, even if it's just some series, like an HBO Max series, like, why not? I don't know.
Yeah. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping they get the little taste in the Snyder Cut of that, and that's something that, you know, people react
Ron and
to.
I both kind of, our sensibilities definitely lean towards these interpretations of these characters. I mean, we're excited for other projects. We're excited for the Batman. We're excited for Flash. We're excited for Shazam 2, Black Adam, all these projects. But at the same time, we really love this kind of dissected, kind of more grounded approach that Snyder has. I mean, not necessarily grounded. It's definitely, it's still high concept, but it's more, it appeals to our sensibilities because it's very serious. It's
very like, not physically human superheroes, but, you know, emotionally and mentally human superheroes, damaged and like real, you know, people struggle. Superheroes would struggle too. Like, I mean, so that's just something that resonates with us. I think that's one of the reasons that the Snyder content kind of has pulled us in the way it did.
For sure. Do you guys watch the Boys on Amazon?
Oh,
you guys watch that?
Yeah,
that's kind of got that sort of that
I love it.
Similar tone, but they do a masterful job of the dark comedy there, and you know, and
awesome.
even though it does have this intense, heavy tone of like what do powers do to somebody, and how does it change them, and how does it affect their lives and their loved ones, but there's also this biting like social commentary and humor, and like all of that coming together, I think is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect blend, I would say, of our sensibilities. It's super serious, but also very irreverent in a good way. It's not just like, it it doesn't take you out as far as like a lot of time, like in theatrical Justice League, for instance, it's like it feels like, you know, any kind of serious moment was kind of undone with this like stupid joke. And so that's the kind of humor that we don't gravitate towards. Like we don't mind levity, but you know, we want it to be earned.
You know who I think James Gunn's gonna nail this Suicide Squad. I haven't seen much of it yet, but like in terms of that like tone, that kind of irreverent, but that's that kind of, but it's serious and it's emotional.
It's awesome.
And it's just kind of naughty. Like I think that I cannot wait to see what he does with that, because I think he's going to find a tone that we haven't seen yet from DC.
Yeah,
that is just going to be like lights out, pretty awesome. So
after that first trailer, I was 150% in on that movie or the Fandom footage. I mean,
yeah, well, Marvel won't let him do stuff like this. So, but I mean, if you know James Gunn, his like roots are like with these like batshit crazy like movies, and so you know he has that side of him that if you let him go, he'll go. And so it's going to be really fun to see, you know, what his Marvel personality is and his Guardians movies, and I love them, and I think they're really special and really great. But then when you kind of let him go, you know, full on rock and roll, you know, what does that version of James Gunn look like in the superhero universe? And I think that's going to be Suicide Squad. And you know that it's at least decent because they're giving him a show for John Cena on
There's
HBO
definitely
Max,
confidence behind it seems like.
Yeah, well, they're probably like, okay, James, we have you for like 3 more months before Marvel gets you back. Can you make a TV show? And he's kind of like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh man. So I did want to ask you too, we were talking about the multiverse earlier, that DC announced they're moving towards a Fandom last year. Do you, at the time I was really excited about it. And I'm still have high hopes for it. But just, and you know, take every story with a grain of salt that comes out online. But I feel like I'm starting to worry a little bit that, because it's been very clear, like up to this point, DC really has not had the clarity of vision of where they're, you know, going before this multiverse announcement. I felt like it was the first time that they were like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what our movies are going to do. But I'm kind of like starting to worry if it's going to be more of like just a reason for them, or an excuse that they can have for inconsistencies in stories. Like, oh, chop it up to the multiverse. Like, I'm just curious. Yeah. Like, I'm just curious what do you feel like they've got kind of clarity of what they're going towards at this point, DC?
Well, I'm excited that finally Marvel and DC are sort of at the same storytelling point, right? You know, I think, you know, we spent many years where Marvel was already up to the Avengers and rolling out these Avengers movies, and sort of DC was kind of crawling into Justice League, you know, and they were kind of really far apart from each other. And now both are arriving at the multiverse at essentially the same time. So I think that's good, because there's not going to be some catch up or this at least appearance of a catch up happening. And I think, you know, and I like the sort of roads that DC is carving out for themselves. You know, they're not saying like Marvel, we're just going to go down this road and it's all going to connect to this road. DC is like, we're going to go down this road. We're going to take a left here. We're going to take a right here. You know, this movie is going to not be related to anything. This movie over here is going to be its own trilogy, but also not related. This is going to play with some DCEU characters that you've seen before. It's going to also include, you know, a character from a previous incarnation that we had back in the 90s. So I think that at least Warner Brothers and DC are setting themselves up to have more options. And I think you want to have more options. You want to at least establish things so that you can say, all right, if we want to go do another movie like Joker, we've established that we can go do that. If we want to go do, you know, a Batman trilogy with one-off thing, we can go do that. And so, and now there's Superman, you know, they're going to do like this own separate Superman thing. And so I'm down with that, because I feel like you can kind of access it from wherever you feel comfortable accessing it. And, you know, the storytelling, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I'm sure they have a plan. I love, what's his name, who's directing Flash. I think he's a smart dude. He did the It movies. I think he knows. Yeah, I think he knows, Andy. I think he knows what he's doing. I'm hoping to talk to him more about it, and we'll find out. You know, and I think Gunn's Suicide Squad, I think that'll be interesting. Maybe that'll give us some ideas of directions that maybe they're going to go in. But I like the multiverse. I like being able to play and fool around and bring back characters that I grew up with, and why not? Sure. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have high hopes for it. It's just that like, you know, the historical DC kind of like creeping in the back of my mind that I gotta like bat down, you know, just because they've had so many struggles.
There's also the element of this is a Flash movie, but when you hear things about, well, Keaton's probably in it, Affleck's in it, you've got a Supergirl that just got cast for it, you've got, you know, all these other, it's like, okay, is this a Flash movie, or are they doing this for some, you know, are they, you know, trying to just use it as more of a retcon, wipe the board type thing? I just hope that they give Flash his due, so to speak, you know.
It might be all of those things, you know. I'm ready. As much as I'm rooting for Zack Snyder and I'm looking forward to watching this cut, I'm sort of ready for the next era. You know, I think we're done leading up to an Avengers movie and leading up to a Justice League movie. Like, we're done. We're past that. We've seen it. We don't need to now lead up to a Justice League 2 and 3, in my opinion. We're done. We can move on to the next era, and if multiverse is that next era, then bring it on and let's see what you got.
And I also feel like it gives you, at the like same token, it gives you the ability to say like all that Snyderverse stuff, like it's multiverse, like it's its own thing. Like, you know,
and it gives them room to play in that sandbox again if they want.
Right, exactly. Well, look, man,
not having them not be slaves to each other, I think helps them in the long run. As far as, I mean, there's no point, like even for Marvel's sake, it's like Marvel already did that. I don't think Marvel will ever achieve anything like they did with Endgame again. So I think that and it seems like they're kind of, I mean, I'm sure they're going to have all these tie-in stuff and probably build to something as well in the future. But it feels like, just based on their slate, that it's probably like less about that and more about these individual stories. I hope so, at least. So.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel will definitely reveal a grand plan, you know, and there'll be some master villain that they're working towards again. But I think the fun thing is that it's just going to now weave through TV into films, back to TV into films. You know, as somebody that covers the industry, I knew that this day was coming for a while. I knew that eventually somebody would take that leap and say, I'm going to create this television series that ties into this film, and vice versa. It's taken longer than I thought it was going to take. I remember when they were doing that Stephen King, the Stephen King adaptation of his film. They wanted to do a TV series. There would be 3 films.
Dark Tower.
And that thing fell apart because the first film was that good. But that was sort of the baby steps, and you could tell that Hollywood wanted to do this. And so it doesn't surprise me that Marvel Studios would be the first to really sort of roll out that execution, because they've been sort of the first in many ways to kind of take those big swings over the last 12 years. So I can't wait to see how these storylines weave in and out of these TV series and into the movies. It should be cool.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. Before we let you go, I wanted to ask you one thing. What would be, as far as upcoming, what's your most anticipated DC film, Marvel film, and then just general, as someone who covers this industry, I'm just curious what your most anticipated feature is going to be on those 3.
I'm a big James Gunn fan. We were talking about that. So Suicide Squad for me. I've been lucky enough to be on both of his Guardians of the Galaxy sets, and I love the way he makes movies. I love the way he thinks. I love how creative he is. I love how funny he is. And so I'm really looking forward to that film. He's got a massive ensemble, and he's got all kinds of different stars of different levels in there. And I think that's just got a lot of potential. So, so looking forward to his Suicide Squad movie, most of all. And then on the Marvel side, I'm probably, it's probably a tie between that Spider-Man 3 movie and the Strange movie, because I think both of those movies are going to really kind of, Marvel's going to start showing their multiverse cards in a big way. And so we'll get to see that a few months before DC really gets to sort of show their multiverse cards.
We know, unfortunately. As DC fans, we're like, they're going to beat us to it again.
I mean, it's, you know what, I think the good news there is that it's already going to be, in post, flashes, or it's probably going to already be done by the time we see Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And so
tell
it's
your
not
critic
like,
friends to remember that come review time.
They're
just copying Marvel. I'm kidding.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I think the future for both Marvel and DC is bright, and I'm looking forward to this next era of storytelling.
Nice. So what about general movie? Just a general movie, not comic book related. What on the horizon has piqued your interest the most?
That Godzilla versus Kong movie.
Oh, really?
I will say that has piqued my interest.
Have you seen it? I know a lot of people have already seen it.
I'm not allowed to say if I've seen it yet, but I will say that I'm very much looking forward to that.
So take that as a yes.
Were you a fan of the first two?
I was a fan of the first Godzilla. I was a fan of Kong Skull Island. I did not like the second Godzilla movie. I just felt like all of the fights were in the dark and the rain. The only thing I liked about the second, I liked how I'm a New York Yankee fan, and like the end of that movie, they destroying the Red Sox stadium. Yeah. So that was like the only real thing that I liked.
Movie's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, all right, screw you, Red Sox. This movie doesn't like the Red Sox either, so I'm good with it. But I'm looking forward to that. This summer, you got so many things. F9 I'm looking forward to. In the Heights I'm looking forward to. I'm a musical guy. I grew up in New York. I grew up going to Broadway shows, so I love In the Heights. I'm looking forward to that. And Suicide Squad and Matrix and Dune and a lot of these Warner Brothers movies, guys.
It's so crazy. I completely just forgot that Matrix is coming out this year.
Yeah, it's done. I think it's almost done. Yeah,
the wild slate of movies coming out for a year coming off COVID.
I'll get that before we go. I'll tell you that the last in-person set visit that was supposed to happen before everything shut down was Matrix. And I was super bummed.
Man.
Oh no!
Where are they filming that? Where were they? Was it Australia? I know originally didn't they film those sequels in Australia?
I think they did.
I don't know why I have Hawaii in my head. I don't know if they did stuff there or the Godzilla vs. Kong. I think they did stuff in Hawaii and Australia. Yeah, I'm not, maybe London. I'm not that sure. But I'm bummed that I didn't get to go visit that set.
Would have been awesome. That's a stacked cast too, as far as like the legacy cast and new, like upcoming, like very like mainstream, like popular actors right now.
And it's an IP that you can do. Like I look back to like the Animatrix. Like I don't know if you like how deep your Matrix knowledge goes, but in between
I'm an Animatrix guy.
Right. Like that was like the first time that we really saw sort of a big IP property in the modern era saying like we're going to create these like animated that are set in the world and it's going to be on TV and like that's when you kind of started to see the pieces way back then of like, oh, this is kind of cool. These are different stories, but they're in the same world. And there were different artists behind them. And so
the universe concept.
Yeah. Right. I think there's so much potential with the Matrix I look at that Matrix as being a good example of where they can go with Matrix. And so I am praying to the movie guys that they land this movie and it opens the door for like all other kinds of
we're huge Matrix fans and we do a movie review podcast with a buddy of ours who is anti-Matrix and we reviewed the Matrix and the whole time we
almost broke up.
That's
rough.
Yeah. But look, man, we appreciate you coming on. This was awesome. And we'll make sure that we put your links to your Twitter and everything in the description.
Right on. Appreciate it.
And everybody follow Erik Davis with a K on Twitter. And again, is there anything else you want to plug that you plugged at the beginning of the show or otherwise?
Yeah, no, just follow me on Twitter. If you live in the United States, buy your tickets at Fandango, and yeah,
Well,
and
cool.
I'll see you at the movies.
Yeah, that's right. All right, man. Well, hopefully we'll be able to have you back on here at some point soon.
For sure. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot,
much.
Eric.